Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Kris Flammang and Picchi are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
All right, I want to welcome everybody to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I am your host, Kris Flammang, and today I have the honor of bringing Trish Butcher to the show. Her firm, Butcher Health Law, specializes in helping medical practitioners and families with special needs loved ones protect their wealth and pass it on to the next generation. As a licensed family business lawyer, she carefully guides clients through the confusing maze of financial and legal decisions that life most certainly brings. All this while juggling marriage, motherhood, pet parenting, and cheering on the Georgia Bulldogs. So Trish, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kris. So, yeah, go dogs.
All right, so let's jump in. I'm sure you have kind of an interesting history of how you came to be where you are now, how you came to the position that you have and the firm that you created. So just briefly take us through your history and how you came to opening your own firm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Athens, Georgia. So I was born and raised a dog, and I went to the University of Georgia for undergrad, and then I went to Emory Law School up in Atlanta. And both of my grandfathers were doctors. My uncle was a doctor. I had 4 nurses in my family. And then my mom ended up marrying an endodontist. So I have a lot of medical professionals in my family. So I was always really interested. And once I realized that I didn't like science enough to pursue actually going to medical school, I decided to go ahead and go to law school. And I'll tell you, originally I went to law school to actually be a politician. And then I became a lobbyist at the Georgia Capitol. And I was like, no, never mind. I'm good.
Right. How long did that take?
Probably about a week.
Okay. So you realized quick.
I did. So I ended up getting an internship with the Medical Association of Georgia, and I ended up being with them for over 5 years. I was their legal counsel, and I wrote several legislations. I worked really closely with the Composite Medical Board, which is the licensing board here in Georgia, as well as the pharmacy board, the dental boards. So I worked really closely with all of them, and I represented at one point about 8,000 physicians. So yeah, I love them. I because I was raised around so many of them.
Yeah, you fit right in. You're comfortable.
I do. And frankly, they work their behinds off to get to where they are. And, medical school doesn't really teach you anything about the legalities of being a doctor. Certainly not about opening your own practice, but it's also not about anything to do with asset protection or, passing on your hard-earned income that you've worked so hard for. So I got into the medical field in that way when my husband and I decided to leave Atlanta to raise our family elsewhere and move back to Athens. I worked as up-counsel for a firm in Augusta that worked primarily with medical professionals, and then decided that probably my best bet was to not have a boss. And so I decided to open up my own firm and do things a little bit differently than I had ever seen a firm do them in the past. So I knew the one thing I wanted to do was not hourly bill. I can't stand hourly billing on my side or for the client side.
Who can?
I know. It's awful. It's awful. Those surprise bills that everyone gets so angry about. So I like to develop a really close personal relationship with my clients. And in order to do that, they need to know that they're not going to be charged $300 for asking me a question. So I decided to open my own law firm, and I stumbled across the new law business model. And it was I did a 6-month boot camp master course on estate planning and business planning, the new law business model way, which is for business, it's a legal, insurance, financial, tax platform. I only work with health and wellness and medical professionals on the business side. And then for the estate planning side, I work with families with special needs loved ones. I work a lot with young families. because what I tell people is at the end of the day, your kids are your most important asset. So if you have kids, you have a reason to do estate planning. And then of course, my niche is definitely with medical professionals, again, helping make sure that they're protecting their legacy, their hard-earned assets, their houses, and their family for the future generations. So
yeah, and I think that's so interesting what you say, because I find, like you were just saying, they don't understand coming out of medical school, the legalities and the estate planning considerations with having their own business and protecting themselves. I also wish they had a financial literacy course for medical professionals when they come out, because I've seen some crazy stuff that they decided to get involved in, from an investment standpoint, and have their next way out there on the next thing, and a series of really bad choices, and can lose a lot of money. So I completely agree with you there. So I'm curious, now that you've had your firm for several years, is there something, if you could go back and tell the younger you when you started, you could go back and tell that person, here's some advice, or here's something that I wish I would have known when I started out, what do you think that would be?
Well, I actually only opened my firm last year.
Oh, okay. So you're still the young you.
Yeah, so it's still pretty young. And in all honesty, I started out thinking I was going to be doing more health law direction. And that's kind of where my name came from, Butcher Health Law. Although I will say my last name is pretty ironic in consideration to medical or like family mushy feeling.
Right.
The good old Butcher. But the only one worse would probably be like slaughter or something like that. But,
right. But that's memorable. That makes you memorable.
Yeah. So I had previously owned another business. So thankfully, I actually knew a lot of the hurdles that I needed to avoid when opening this business, like just on a business standpoint. When you open a business, you really just have to go all in and make those investments that sometimes feel a little scary. So I did that. The number one thing I'm going to have to rebrand. So I won't be Butcher Health Law for too long. So now I'm about to have to go through the rebranding process. Okay. I think my firm will actually become named Arch Legacy Firm for the, after the channeling that UGA Arch, which is our big, landmark in Athens, because I think it fits probably a little bit more about the, what I do with my law firm now. So, but I mean, that was just a growing process of not, of discovering exactly where I wanted my law firm to go and how I wanted to help people. But I'm really thankful I found the new law business model, because I love estate planning. I really love working with people, protecting their families, and creating very personalized and comprehensive plans that will actually work when they need them to, versus, unfortunately, a lot of attorneys just still do those fill in the blank wills that really do nothing for you. And they certainly don't protect your asset. Yeah,
I think of it in terms of it's like a transactional type relationship versus a wealth oversight or a consultative one, right? Where we're not just doing a transaction. We want to be involved in their entire estate and financial situations to give them advice on whatever may come up. So give me a simple way that you describe or explain to potential clients or clients why they should have a comprehensive estate or an asset protection plan for their wealth.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that wills do not avoid the probate process. The probate process is going to be very different in every state. It's different in Georgia. It's different in Florida. Georgia has technically, supposedly, one of the friendliest probate processes. Florida does not. So Florida charges actually a 3% to 2.5% once you're over $1 million for estates to go through the probate process. It's $3,000 to file it, plus 3% for anything over $100,000 to 300,000. I mean, to $1 million, and then 2.5 over $1 million. So it's obviously, as you can imagine, that's going to rack up quite a bit of fees. And then add in the 3% that your attorney is going to charge. And that's insane. So a lot of people don't realize that wills don't avoid probate. Obviously, if you don't have anything, it's going to go through probate. The example that I give a lot of people is my firsthand experience with a estate plan gone bad. Was my grandparents were remarried. My grandmother was a real estate investor. Her husband, technically my step-grandfather, I called him my grandfather, was a doctor. They had a pretty complicated estate. Obviously, they amassed a good amount of properties and wealth. And my dad was an only child, and then my grandfather had 2 children from a previous marriage as well. Their estate was a disaster. They probably spent, I'd say, over $25,000 on estate planning because they had all of these random trusts set up. So I know they spent a lot of money on it. But in the end, my dad was in court and conflict for 4 years after my grandfather passed away. And it was just, I mean, it was a mess. His children sued the estate multiple times. They actually even accused me of embezzling, which is really funny, let me tell you. So, I mean, it was a disaster. It was just a mess. And a lot of people don't realize that wills do nothing to avoid this for them. So if they're price shopping and looking around for the cheapest, solution to writing a will online or with an attorney that just does fill in the blank wills, they don't realize that really does nothing because my dad then actually went to one of the most, well-known estate planning attorneys in Athens at a big firm. A lot of people kind of refer to him. And my dad was over 60, a smoker and single. And the only thing they did for my dad was create a will that left his estate split 3 ways between his 3 children. So number one, the law would have already done that. So the will didn't even accomplish anything at all. It will still have to go through probate. The law would have already said that it would be split between 3 ways. Furthermore, they didn't do any incapacity documents. So that healthcare power of attorney, the power of attorney, the advanced healthcare directive or living will, none of those were created. So if anything had happened to him and he was in the hospital, we would have still had to go petition a judge to be able to make healthcare decisions for him. And he was a single smoking, older male. So I mean, there's no reason for them not to have been like, hey, Steve, you need to have these documents in place. But unfortunately, that's what a lot of attorneys do. And one of them once told me, well, we do what the client wants. And I say, well, how does the client know what they want if you don't educate them first? So my process is an educational process. We do a lot of revocable living trusts because those avoid the probate process if funded properly. And unlike most attorneys, we actually work with our clients to help them fund them. So that's a really, really, really important piece that people need to realize.
There's 2 steps in that. There's creating the revocable trust. Then you have to actually go through the funding part. And how many times have you probably run into where someone had one, but it wasn't properly funded?
Oh, yeah.
Easy thing to miss. Okay, so you kind of talked a little bit about what caused you to specialize with medical professionals. I'm curious, the special needs planning. So what was your motivation there to have a niche or a specialty in that? And is there a tactic or tool that's absolutely necessary for those people to succeed from an estate standpoint?
Yeah. So, it's not even necessarily succeeding. It's creating something for your child or your loved one that they would never be able to create for themselves. So my really good friend, who's actually a financial planner in Athens, I've done a couple webinars with him. I'm really close with him. His son is special needs. And so he kind of got me really, really thinking about it. And, as a parent, for me anyhow, it's hard enough just having a so-called, normal child. But, and so I can't imagine what it's like for these parents to be thrown into this world of unknowns and not have the resources, taught to them right off the bat. There's lots of parenting books. There's not a lot of parenting resources aimed at the special needs population and families. And it's so important for them. Actually, I'm now on the board for a very newly formed Georgia Alliance for Special Needs Families. And so I work really closely with them. And so one of those pieces is definitely making sure that their estate plan is actually going to protect their loved ones for life. So for example, one of the tools that's really, really, really important with you have a special needs loved one is a special needs or a supplemental needs trust. It's the same thing. It's called either. And, this is really, really important because these kids, these young adults, these adults, however, they're going to need a lot of assistance, a lot of financial support through life. Their medical bills are super expensive. And for families that have more wealth, it's amazing, even if you're well off, how quickly you can go through that wealth. For example, my friend once told me, he said, we just have to come to terms with the fact that while our friends are buying vacation properties or lake houses or whatever, we're going to end up having to hire a full-time medical, assistant because their son's now 70 pounds, can't walk.
Yeah.
And so they need a lot of help with him.
Right.
And so that being said, you really need government assistance to help pay. So in Georgia, we have Katie Beckett. As they get older, they really have to qualify for that, the Medicaid, the Medicare supplemental support for living expenses and, everything like that. So by creating a special needs trust, what you're doing is you're making their life certainly, you're supporting them with things they need to make their life a little more comfortable, but you're not giving them those assets outright so that actually they still qualify for government assistance.
Yeah.
And government assistance isn't enough as it is.
Right.
So, they really need all the help they can get.
So in a simple way, when you're providing that assistance, it's not disqualifying them from qualifying for those other government programs.
Correct.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're trying to make sure that if they inherit some money, that it is protected in a way that they can still qualify for government assistance. And the only way that they can do this is to have someone create this trust for them. There are special needs trusts that someone can create for themselves. But so you can put all your assets into the trust and qualify for government assistance. But then once you pass away, the government's going to come raid that trust. And whatever's left in there, they're going to take it as a payback for everything they've paid while you were still alive. So, I mean, in all honesty, that, it's not extremely beneficial.
Kind of like the clawbacks with estate planning, and to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit. What do you personally like most about your business right now?
Not having a boss, but
I'm with you on that.
No, I really love working with families and getting to know all these different families from all these different backgrounds and what their goals are for life and what they'd like to do. My sister actually works with me, so that's really awesome. So we're kind of, our family protecting other families. And she's a life insurance agent as well as kind of like my paralegal, basically. In all honesty, she probably knows more about these trusts than I do now. She's extremely detail-oriented. So I love working with these families and creating these comprehensive plans that actually fit their needs. And me being able to walk away knowing that I actually helped them and made an impact and that it will actually work if something happens to them. And in fact, we actually offer a kids protection plan. And only attorneys that are licensed personal family lawyers or family business lawyers can actually create these packages. Okay. So instead of just naming guardians for your kids, we name emergency guardians. We do minor medical power of attorneys, and we actually even give little ID cards for parents to keep in their wallet that says, hey, if anything happens to me, please call one of these people and make sure my children are taken care of. Because if they're on a date night and your kid's at home with a babysitter, you don't come home, the babysitter calls the police. Well, police don't have any option but to take the child into protective custody until they can find, close relatives. Yep. So we kind of make sure that that's all avoided. If you don't live near close relatives, close friends can be named and we give them the authorization that they need to keep your children out of protective custody.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a whole nother way of looking at it. And so you just kind of get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when you're like, wow, I'm actually making a difference. I'm actually creating plans that work for people versus, offering the cheapest service possible and doing just fill in the blank wills and,
what's required to get by.
Yeah, exactly. And then waiting for them to pass away so that then we can probate the estate and make 3%.
Get paid again on that. Yeah, I've been in some situations. Probate, so. So when people think about estate planning, what do you think is a big misconception that they have about either estate planning attorneys or just estate planning in general, like the general public? What's a misconception they have?
Well, first of all, people are always hesitant to talk to attorneys. They don't want to. Attorneys intimidate them. It's an unknown. It's uncomfortable. And unfortunately, what I've realized is that a lot of people, when they think of talking to an attorney, they think of talking to, no offense, a middle-aged man with a suit on in a high-rise, office in Midtown Atlanta. very impersonal, very, kind of uncomfortable situation. So I tell my potential clients right off the bat, I say, listen, I don't wear suits. And I don't have like some fancy apartment in downtown Athens or midtown Atlanta or whatever it is. But again, it's just really, most people don't have any understanding of estate planning.
Right.
So it's coming
it's an intimidating,
I need a will and to name guardians. That's what I hear the most. I need a will and to name guardians. And so I actually have a webinar that I try and kind of steer a lot of potential clients to, because it honestly makes them understand if I'm going to be good fit for them, and if they're going to be a good fit for me, because it walks them through the process of, hey, here's why you might need something a little bit more than just a will and naming guardians. And, here's what I offer. Here's how I'm different than other attorneys. And here's going to be my average price range. Because obviously a lot of the time people are looking for that dollar, how much money is this going to cost? And so it kind of walks them through that process, explaining the value of what I'm offering. And I tell clients, I say, listen, you're developing a plan, you're paying a little bit more up front, you're doing a little bit more legwork by funding this trust up front. But what you're doing is you're doing it so that your loved ones don't have to. And it's going to be way messier and way more expensive on the back end. So it's actually going to save your family money in the long run and save them so much hassle and time. And right now, the probate process is backed up, 2 years because of COVID.
Because of COVID, right.
It's just it's kind of a disaster. But so, it's just, I didn't really know much about estate planning before I really dived into it. They don't even teach it in law school. So if they don't even teach it in law school that much, we all know that, the majority of people aren't going to know that much about estate planning.
Yeah, maybe enough to be dangerous, or just what they looked up the night before they had a meeting with you online. These are the questions I'm supposed to ask you. So here's what I'm going to ask. So tell me about a recent client experience, very satisfying, what problems they were facing, what they were trying to do, how you were able to help them and improve their life.
So going back to kind of the medical side, I recently worked with a young physician and her husband who's a banker, and they have one young minor child. So of course, as physicians, they kind of get it pounded into them that, malpractice lawsuits. You have to protect yourself from malpractice lawsuits. And, the good news is that maybe malpractice lawsuits is something they need to be as scared of as they think they are, because they are very, the actual lawsuit is very uncommon. For it to actually go to a courtroom.
Right.
Here in Georgia, we have Mag Mutual as one of our biggest insurers. Medical Association of Georgia Mag did actually start them way back in the day, but they're separate entities now. But I worked very closely with them. I knew a lot of attorneys that work for them. They have the best attorneys. They have the best med-mal defense attorneys on, ever that they can call on. They very, very rarely take anything to court. And almost everything's settled out of court.
Everything's settled, right.
And they're gonna spread the blame around too. It's not gonna all fall on the doctor. So even if it is happened, even if something does happen, it's typically not going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
However, obviously it is something they're worried about. They are in that high risk professional. They do have professional liability. So I work with my clients on kind of overlooking their entire plan. Do they have enough umbrella insurance if they're worried about, if they are worried about that liability? What can we do to protect their assets now? What can we do to protect them if something was to happen to one of them? Do they have enough life insurance to support their spouse if one of them passes away when they're making that much money per month? And then, of course, obviously, is their child protected? So we really work a lot with something called lifetime asset protection trusts. And these are trusts that you can create for your children. No one else can. You can't create them for yourself. And they actually are trusts. They're generational trusts, so they can keep going, forever, basically. And they protect your children from creditors, from student loans, from divorce, if they ever got a divorce. And a lot of parents, are really interested in that for their kids. So I was able to do all of this for this couple, create a really comprehensive plan, work on them with insurance, work on them with making sure they had the best asset protection available while, still living and working, and really, make them feel very secure knowing that, hey, I'm still in this, field that has a high risk of, professional liability, but at least at this point, we're as covered as we can, be right now.
Yeah, we covered all the bases.
And our child's protected forever.
Yeah, and you've covered all their blind spots, the ones that they knew they had and the ones that they didn't.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's the important thing, is bringing those to their attention and covering those as well. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. I'm curious to know a little bit more about you, and tell me about your first memory or experience with money.
Ooh. Okay, well, here's a good one, and it relates very closely to my to what I do. So I worked as an insurance agent for my brother-in-law in college, but I mean, that was just, drinking money. Let's be honest.
Right.
You're in college.
Right.
I went to the University of Georgia.
Right.
We ranked as the, number one party school for years. So really the first time I ever had any type of financial independence was when, right as I graduated college, I went straight into law school. My grandmother passed away and left me, a relatively small inheritance, certainly small compared to what my student loan debt was going to be by the time I graduated from Emory Law School. But it was enough to, be like, ooh, okay, I can do something with this. So, so right around that time, Blockbuster went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I'm going to invest money in Netflix because Blockbuster just went bankrupt. So I'm going to invest money in Netflix. So let's go. So, I mean, I think I invested like $10,000 or something in Netflix. And let's just put it this way. If I had left that money in Netflix and it was still there today, I'd have hundreds of thousands of dollars. But instead, because I was 22 years old and had just inherited money, I found better reasons to invest that, to use that money. So I took it back out of Netflix after earning, maybe a couple $100 and went and spent it. And I spent it all. It was all gone by the time I graduated law school. And instead, if I had left it in Netflix, hey, I would have actually been able to pay off my student loan debt, in a few years. But so what I tell clients is I'm like, okay, listen, if you do a will, your children will inherit at 18. Like that is that's the straight rule. Unless you do a testamentary trust, which is a trust created by your will, which is so silly. Why would you do that? If you're going to the extra cost and process of setting up this trust, let's do it right. So you do not want your child to inherit a bulk sum of money at 18.
No.
I inherited money at 22, and
look what happened. There's no way I should have inherited any money at 18. That would have been bad.
No, I mean, we all know that how that money would have been spent. We would have gone out and bought a new car and a lot of, had a really good time in college. So,
so then building on that, do you have any experiences either personally or in business that made you keenly aware of the positive or the negative impact of wealth, right? Because money itself is not a positive or negative thing. It's how it's used, right? That makes it either a good or for good or for bad. So can you think of maybe an experience personally or otherwise that made you really aware of the negative impact or the positive impact of that?
So my grandmother was a real estate investor. She made quite a bit of money. She came from absolutely nothing, from a small town called Defuniak Springs in Florida, kind of near Destin. And she was one of 8 children. She left home pretty young, moved in with her older sister, put herself through FSU, which at the time was an all-women's school, and became a professor at Florida, and then moved to Georgia when my dad was about 8. And so she became a real estate investor. So very, very intelligent lady, did very well for herself. She even invested in a lake house at Lake Burton. And I don't know if you've heard of Lake Burton, but it's
I have.
The most sought after lake in Georgia. I'm not at Lake Burton right now, unfortunately, because she did end up selling that house, but she bought it for something like the land for $30,000 and then sold the lake house for about $2 million. So talk about a real estate investment. But and trust me, we were very unhappy when she sold that lake house. But but my grandmother manipulated with money. So she really always felt like she had to buy your love with money. I think it was probably her upbringing and the fact that that's just, you know, she didn't know any better. And so I saw that firsthand. She was extremely wealthy, but the only way that she really showed love was by buying us things or paying for things. And I'm not going to complain about having a nice car or whatever, but at the same time, like, you know, it would have been nice to actually connect to my grandmother. So I guess that'd be probably like my, you know, negative. And then, you know, also just how it affected my dad, who was an only child, the mindset that he was raised with, that he was going to inherit a good bit of money one day. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, that obviously that probate process was not simple at all.
Right.
But yeah, so I saw that firsthand. And then on the other end, my mom's parents, my grandfather was the head of the internal medicine department at Emory, who was known as the doctor's doctor. Okay. And so a lot of his clients were Jimmy Carter, president of Delta, president of Coca-Cola. You know, he saw the big wigs of the Atlanta scene. And he was a completely different, you know, he was more frugal. He had one small condo in Amelia, and that was his, you know, vacation home. And he always wanted a Porsche, and he never even bought one. So,
oh, wow. Yeah.
So, you know, so a totally different kind of mindset. So I just, you know, my parents are more traditional. You know, they grew up on the whole, like, save money, retire with what you got. My husband and I are a little more, less risk adverse, I guess you would say. Obviously, I've now started 2 businesses, so right then and there. My husband's an aerospace engineer from Georgia Tech, so he's certainly not intimidated by me. We'll put it that way.
Right. Interesting dinner conversation.
We love doing real estate investment as well, so flipping houses and rental properties. So I try and stay on top of it for the most part, but like I mentioned, a really good friend of mine is a financial planner. So I legitimately called him at 8:00 yesterday morning. I was like, I need some free advice, please. I was so should we put more money in my Roth IRA, or should we just save it to invest in, you know, rental properties? Like, okay, talk to me.
Right. Yeah. You can barter. Can I ask you something? And then you can ask me stuff later. What would you say is your biggest life accomplishment then so far, either personally or professionally? Or both?
Oh, I asked this question. We do life and legacy interviews for all of our clients. This is reverse psychology. So I know. So I ask my clients this question. And almost always, you know, they say their children. And I mean, I definitely, you know, my son is 2. I didn't love being pregnant. Labor was not fun. The epidural did not work for me. So unfortunately had a natural birth, which I was not
so you're not prepared yet to say that your child is your biggest life accomplishment. You're probably one of the few honest people left in the world.
I'm
Trish.
Still fighting off the PTSD. And then a lot of moms, you know, some of them live for it. And that's amazing. My sister is a fantastic mother. Infancy was kind of a hard time for me as well. Just that lack of independence and having something so attached to you all the time. I adore my son, and he definitely is one of my biggest accomplishments. And he's already over 3 feet tall, and he's ridiculously athletic and smart. So I have a bad feeling about this. But I mean, you know, going to law school and honestly starting this law firm. I really never, ever, ever would have thought I was going to start a law firm. My last business I actually owned was an all-women's gym, which I love. And I'm very passionate about health and wellness and fitness. So, but I never thought I would open my own law firm. And it's just the fact, and I made the investment and I did the master course and I learned, you know, and it's obviously a continuous learning process. You're always learning, but I'm really proud of that. I mean, especially doing it with a baby and during COVID.
Right. Well, and sometimes, you know, I think about like, well, there's never really a good time to do it necessarily. So you might as well do it in the first year when all this bad stuff happens. Then you can reflect back and you kind of get that out of the way until the next crisis comes along. But you mentioned that things are always changing in your industry, you know, laws and such. So how do you stay kind of on the cutting edge of your industry? Is there something that you follow or read on a regular basis?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, we do conferences, we do our CLEs, we do everything like that. I'm going to the Heckerling Institute in May, which is a huge estate planning conference that's put on, I think by Miami, the University of Miami. It's in Orlando, but it's virtual this year. So a couple of attorneys. One is a mom, just like I am, and owns her own firm in Massachusetts, in Boston. Okay. The other is in Pennsylvania. So we're actually taking a girls trip, and we're going to go down to the beach and watch the Heckerling Institute together. So, hey,
nice.
No complaints about that. But no, I'm part of this certification and this group. And so we all kind of help each other stay on top. I'm extremely close to a lot of the other estate planning attorneys in Athens and in Georgia that are in my certification. Yeah. I have lunches with them all the time. People think that, we not get along, but we really don't. There's plenty of people, 69% of people don't have estate plans is what the estimate is. Yeah. So there's plenty of fish in the sea for all of us. But yeah, just doing that. And on another, to turn it around, because of this, because the law is changing, because our family circumstances change, I also make sure that my clients don't just create an estate plan and forget about it. So we actually do complimentary 3-year reviews with all of our clients. And we offer a membership where they get every year reviews, and we do it with their financial planners, to give that full comprehensive outlook, to make sure they're still on track, to make sure these are people whose maybe their wealth fluctuates a good bit because they're investors, or they own lots of properties, or they own a business. And so, so we do that as well. But it's really important. You can't just create an estate plan and throw it in a drawer somewhere and forget about it, because things change. Right now, we're looking down the barrel at the estate tax. I'm sure you know lots about that. I do. Still currently $23 million per couple. President Biden has made it extremely clear that he's dropping that rate. So I don't know what numbers you've heard tossed around, but I've heard, $3 million per individual, 3.5 per individual. But then, President Obama tried to drop it to 1.5 per individual. And then not too far in the distant past, I mean, I can remember, obviously, when President Clinton was president, his was $400,000 to $650,000 per individual. So, I mean, that's huge. That wasn't that long ago. I don't think it will drop that low, but, so obviously this is something that a lot of high earning professionals need to really start thinking about. So obviously, that's part of that 3-year review that we do. Because if you're close to that estate tax limit, you need to do some planning for it, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me an interesting or a unique fact about you that very few people know.
I'm a really good artist.
Okay. Now, so elaborate on that.
I used to do a lot of portraits, charcoal portraits primarily, but I've done some oil paintings, some acrylic paintings. I have no formal lessons in art. My great-grandfather was a pretty famous artist. He had some paintings in the White House. So I guess I just inherited my ability through him. But yeah, I don't really do much of it anymore. I don't have time, frankly.
I know.
But it's kind of my retirement plan, is I plan on retiring to Amelia Island and painting marsh scenes and ocean scenes for the rest of my life.
All right, there we go. Sell them on the sidewalk. Right, I like it.
So, so somewhere inside of me, and hopefully it's like riding a bike and you don't forget how, because it's certainly pretty rusty right now. Yeah, probably, my nephews have multiple paintings and drawings of them, and my son has none.
So what is the most exciting part of your business right now? Your most exciting part? Not what you enjoy doing the most, but what's the most exciting part?
I mean, just still growing. Getting out to the Athens community, the Georgia community. It's really, really fun. I'm in a couple of parenting groups. And so occasionally people will, post, hey, I need to do a will. I need to name guardians. Who's an attorney and to see how many people are already referring me. It's just, it's really fun watching it grow and being wrapped up in that experience. And I like the business side and the networking side. And so I do a lot of networking lunches. I do a lot of, I'm trying to get out into the Athens community more. And I was not the student body president type. So I was not the person that was uber involved. Right. So I'm having to, kind of break out of my comfort. zone a little bit to be like, okay, I need to join, groups. I need to like get involved. I need to be involved in my chamber of commerce and stuff like that. So it's been, I have to push myself outside of my comfort zone, but, and I joined a tennis team.
Was it social outlet or was it for networking purposes also?
I was a swimmer, so I never really had a whole lot of experience with like hand-eye coordination sports, mainly because I had no interest in playing them. My mom qualified for the Olympics in high school. She broke the record for the mile run and was in the Hall of Fame for basketball in college. Okay. My sister went to college playing softball, and here I am, and I'm like, I don't like these sports. So no, I do tennis because I love it. Yeah. Tennis, but also the networking, getting to know more people. I grew up in Athens, but I left for 6 years. And so it's kind of like starting all over again. Most of my friends are all gone.
Yeah. I picked up pickleball in the last 6 months with my kids over COVID, which I know is not much running as tennis, but as you can see, I'm a little bit older than you, Trish, so I can't move quite as well as I used to.
Pickleball is so popular right now.
Yeah, it's fun, and you still get a workout, and you less chance of blowing out my knee. So on the flip side of that other question, think about what do you think is your biggest challenge right now in your business? Not for your clients, but you personally. What's your biggest challenge?
Probably the same thing, building up a client base. Really getting those referrals going, you just getting your name out there, which is interesting since I am about to rebrand. But thankfully, I feel like most people just kind of associate it with my name. But just getting it out there, educating people on why they need something more than just an online will. It's owning a business, making it profitable and, finding enough clients to work with. But we've grown pretty well for, a small business, and we're doing pretty good. But that's always, that's definitely the challenge. So, and then also just learning it all. I had no background in estate planning, before the beginning of last year. And I did that 6-month master course and really dived into it. And I feel pretty good about it, but it's always still learning and feeling more and more confident when talking to people. And so, but like any business, finding clients, getting your name out there, educating the community. And
so I've seen, in our industry, and I think this is also probably true in accountancy and to some degree in the legal field, is there's a growing kind of commoditization of those industries. And what I mean by that from commoditization. So how have you kind of see that in either your business or in the legal field?
Oh, yeah. Let's see, Rocket Lawyer, willsandtrust.com. There's there's so many of them. And I see ads for them all the time because because obviously I'm constantly posting about estate planning. So, you're fighting, obviously, fighting that as well as just attorneys. There's one attorney who offers anybody in my parenting groups, he'll do a $90 will for them. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean he'll do a $90 will for you? What is this? What does he meet with you? Does he explain what you're doing? How does he do this? I'm guessing you have to go notarize it and get it witnessed yourself because it's certainly not worth his time to do it. So, it's just constantly fighting that, well, why would I come to you when I can do it for so cheap? Oh, the online attorney services we talk about it all the time, but just people need to find an attorney that fits for them. I have a clientele that fits for me, and it's definitely people who are willing to learn why I charge the rates I do and where the value is in those rates. That I'm creating something that is a very personalized and very comprehensive. We have 4 meetings. It's a process. It's paying it up front to make sure that your family doesn't pay it on the back end. Yeah. And pay a lot more for it and spend a lot more time and end up in a situation like my dad did. So yeah. It's just all those online services and all those attorneys that honestly, they either don't care or they just don't know. And I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah. Well, and it could be a lead-in for them to offer other services that don't cost $90, maybe. Who knows? I wouldn't want to find out. So do you think there's a question that I should have asked you, or would you like to expand on anything that you said earlier?
No, I mean, my process is very, maybe just like the difference between my process and other attorneys' processes. Like I said, I have 4 meetings. We do something called a family wealth planning session. We send out pretty extensive homework to gather more information about their assets, which financial planners typically tend to love because it's kind of right up their alley as well. Although we certainly do not give financial advice. And we love working with their financial advisor if they have one, because that's super important to get that full comprehensive picture of like their wealth, their plan for, their wealth. But then we do a design meeting. All of my packages are flat rate. So I think I mentioned that the base package that I offer is 2 wills for each individual, 2 healthcare power of attorneys, 2 power of attorneys, 2 advanced healthcare directives / living wills. They're kind of named both things. And then also that kids protection plan. So all of that is included in our base package. I don't do like little piecemeal services for people. It's just, I want to make sure that they're fully covered. And if all they're looking for is a will, then I'm not the right fit for them. And it's important for everyone to find, the right fit for them, and for me to find the right fit for my services. Beyond that, our next step up has the revocable living trust. And then there's other irrevocable trusts that you can start adding in. And then we even have a wealth plan where we will actually fund their trust for them. But in all honesty, I really steer people away from that, because it's a lot easier for them to do it than it is for us. And we really work very closely with them to do it. And then if they do have a financial advisor or planner that, they have investment accounts with, honestly, their financial planner can then just go do it for them. So it's so much easier for them to do it themselves and to save that extra money and not have us do it. So instead, we've really created a really close process where we work really closely with them and make sure they're funding their trust. And we do a signing meeting, and then our last meeting is a binder delivery meeting. We give them their binder, their USB flash drive, and then we do that life and legacy interview with them, so that if anything did ever happen to them, their family has this amazing video where they get to learn more about their parents or, whatever. And then I tell clients, hey, because when you remember your umbrella, it never rains. Just think you can watch this video 25 years down the road with your kids and kind of laugh about it. So, but yeah, so it is, my process is extremely different than most attorneys. And there are certified personal family lawyers all over the country now. I think there's probably about like 10 in Georgia. I know there's several in Florida. And to get this experience, I highly recommend finding someone, a personal family lawyer that's in your, in your regional area, because we go above and beyond to make sure our clients are fully covered.
And if people want to learn more about you, or they want to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So right now, my law firm's name is Butcher Health Law. And so it's butcherhealthlaw.com. I also have an Instagram handle. It's Butcher Health Law LLC. Every Wednesday, I do a Whiskey and Wills video. It's like a 6-minute video where I'm literally just sitting there drinking bourbon and talking about estate planning. It's very casual, just kind of a fun thing. It's a serious and kind of morbid topic. So you got to make it as relaxed as I try and make it as relaxed as I can. And
you're probably a lot like me. I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously.
Yeah, no, I don't take myself seriously at all. But as I mentioned, no suits. I am typically dressed a little bit nicer than this. As y'all can see, I'm at the lake right now. Our house is being renovated, so we got kicked out. And my son's sick right now. But yeah, no, so they can schedule a consultation with me online. I offer free 15-minute consultations. I also have on-demand webinars available on my website, which are extremely educational. I have one for young families and one for asset protection for medical professionals and higher earning professionals. And then soon I'll also have one on special needs. So there's lots of avenues to learn more without having to immediately talk to me, which I know can be a little intimidating for people.
Yes, that's great. So, Trish, listen, I want to thank you for taking time to be with me here today.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to interview you. I think it was fun. Folks, we've been here with Trish Butcher from Butcher Health Law, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in to the Confident Retirement Podcast, brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we're raising the retirement confidence of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.